Welcome to Hypertech Voices of the Industry. My name is Clarence Barnes. Here we are. This is an opportunity for everyone in the business to drop by Hypertech and talk about what's happening in the last few years, what they're looking for in 2023, and all the changes and all the great things that are happening here in motorsports and in the automotive world. So, SEMA Las Vegas, we're here with Kim Pendergrast from Magnuson Superchargers. Now, you're one of those people that I've seen in so many different lights, because I know you as a business person, as a CEO, as what some people would say as being on the front of the check, and so to speak. And Magnuson, well, let's go back, because there was Arrington.
Yep.
And Arrington, of course, we know that as Hemi Power and NASCAR and all the different things like that. And then moving.
I actually started with him as the ignition.
Did you really?
I did. I invested in him as the ignition. And Dan Gresham, which probably a lot of people know, is the person who got me into this industry. And I got a taste of it, and I liked it, and I came to SEMA, and I was a little bit lost. It was a big show. And and then I bought Arrington, and Arrington led me to Magnuson. So
let's back up just a little bit. There is so much going on with you, meaning that, she's like, yeah, and I bought this, and I went, you're a business background, finance, Terre Haute, Indiana.
Farm girl.
Yeah.
Farm girl.
And you understand the numbers, you understand the markets, you understand things like that. So how did you end up making that bridge into motorsports? Arrington is not just like going and getting a McDonald's franchise. That's a pretty big platform, as well as MST. How did that appeal to you? What did you see?
I thought I could bring something to the party.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that my prior experience would allow me to have value. And it appealed to me to have a smaller business that I could run, as opposed to being part of a very large business like AT&T and some of the other companies that I worked for and with, where you were part of the solution, but you couldn't see the results that you were driving at.
It didn't have that tactile response.
Exactly.
You weren't there.
I need that.
Yeah. So what do you think what was it that drew you to motorsports? It seems like there's a thread going from, Arrington, famous engine builder, product design, moving into Magnuson, which is supercharging everything.
Well, I got to Magnuson is crazy. So Dan Gresham was on the board of Arrington.
Right.
And Arrington was being transformed from just a race company to the aftermarket company. You talked about shophemi.com. And we decided we were going to build a supercharger, and we were going to hire somebody from Australia to build that supercharger for us. And Dan said, "You're crazy. You should just go to Magnuson. And you should not do this yourself." And I met Jerry, and Jerry said he'd do it. And then not very long after that, Dan called and said, "This company's for sale. I know this is crazy, and here we are." 10 years later.
People have to know better than to bring you into the room. She's like, yeah, I like this place.
And I do like this place. It's really hard, but it's small enough you could get your arms around it. And it's very much about people. And it's very much about getting it in the box, and getting it in the box with a very high degree of precision. So the superchargers that we make, it's like 1/20th of a hair is the precision that we have to have. And I just love that engineering.
Well, it's funny, because one of the most interesting people I know, who's a friend, who's also an amazing racer and developer, Mike Copeland, swears by Magnuson. And it takes a lot for him to really put his foot down and say, that's what I need.
Yep. And so Mike bought Arrington from me. And when he did the hydrogen vehicle, he put the Magnuson supercharger on it, which we were very honored to do.
That was really, really cool. As a matter of fact, that's going to race in Optima this week. So,
is that right?
Yeah.
Mike is an amazing man and a very good friend.
But, it's interesting, coming from your background of finance and business and administration into automotive.
And supply chain. I spent a long time on supply chain. And I think I could see the disintermediation coming. And I knew that would require some changes in process, and I thought I could help with that.
Magnuson seems like, where I'm going with this is, Magnuson seems like it has a very hands-on appeal when you talk to them. If you need information, for engineering and things like that, it's not just like a lot of people who jump into something and all of a sudden everything's offshored, everything's in a box. It sort of has to, shoehorn into something to make a certain goal. It seems like you bring something different to the table there, and that might be your trademark, I think.
Well, I always believe there's DNA in a business, and they've been there for 50 years. They actually helped Eaton when they developed the first supercharger, and Eaton provides the rotating group for us. And Jerry Magnuson was there at the table helping them at the time. And he invented the idea of an aftermarket for that business. And they ended up saying, okay, we'll give you the aftermarket. And so began that business. And the guys that are in that shop, they know what not to do. And I've had so many people come to us and say, it's not that hard. It's 135 parts. It's these bolts. We've taken it all apart. But it's the integration of the pieces that is really, really hard. And I think the bigger issue, when people say to me, how do you get more power? And it says, well, it depends, because it's very application specific. So those guys have followed the OEMs that we build for decades. And they know the strategy, they know how those engineers think, they know what the weak spots are. And so we have to design around that application, because it's only as good as the car, it's only as good as the transmission, it's only as good as the fuel pump. And so it's that integration that is the hard part, the fun part.
Do you guys feel the energy? Do you feel the energy? This is truly amazing. This is the sort of the DNA. You talked about the DNA of a company, and so many companies as they grow lose that thread. I mean, we're in motorsports. I grew up with a B&M shifter in my GTO. I mean, I knew every part, and I look around here and I go, wow, I got a Zoom clutch when I was a kid because it was purple. I didn't know anything better, but it had a purple pressure plate on it. I was like, that's what I want. And those are DNA threads that keep us going back. And so many, when these people merge, when they acquire something, they tend to forget that DNA.
And there's another piece, and part of this comes from me working before for a lot of large companies. When you do the math, you think you can centralize, but you can't take into the math equation what you're losing, because you can't get those numbers of what it means to be close to the customer. I would never move Magnuson from Ventura, California, because those people are Magnuson, and you can't move them. They won't go. And if we moved, we would lose the very essence of what we have. And I think it's important to understand that when you own a business.
That is super important. For everyone who's thinking about doing an acquisition this week here at SEMA, looking around, remember that. On a very serious note, I've been a part of so many things like that. I mean, it's fun to talk about it, but I believe that is what I notice as someone on the outside looking in who's not privy to spreadsheets and things like that. But I look and I go, there is a DNA of certain companies that you remember and that you're passionate about because of that. It's kind of like a glue. So that's the professional, the Magnuson, the you, that is all this kind of stuff. But you're behind the scenes in so many different things here at SEMA, involved with the SEMA PAC. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I was on the board of directors. I took Jamie Meyer's seat a few years ago, and then I ran again. And the thing that gets me up in the morning is thinking about what is the work. And on that board, I felt the work was to understand the future, because I had been in a number of industries where the future changed and people didn't see it coming. And a lot of people got hurt, and they wouldn't have needed to be hurt, but we didn't take action soon enough. I've been in the book business. I've been in the office products business. I was at AT&T. I was in the packaging business, and I saw changes, and we didn't react to those changes. So the work to me is the PAC. It's the SEMA PAC, and it's doing the same thing that we did when we created the SEMA show. I mean, we forget that individuals created the show. Everybody says, well, SEMA does the show. And SEMA doesn't do the show. SEMA coordinates the show. They allow it to happen. They make it happen, I should say. But it's Hypertech and all these individual people bringing the product here that is the show. And so we did that together. And this is something that we're going to have to do together with individuals. So to me, it's getting the message out about why is that important? Why should I make that investment? What is it? I don't like government. I don't want to be involved in government. But understanding that we must do it to protect our industry. We must get involved to make this happen.
I always say you can't bitch if you don't vote. And I think being a part of a PAC, being a part of the action, protects your interests and
Right.
protects your friends and your well-being of what we do, our business that we thrive in, and all the fun things we get to do.
Right. And the government has made it so it's illegal for SEMA to contribute to the PAC. It's illegal for a member business to contribute to the PAC. So only an individual can contribute. And it's not tax deductible. I mean, it's
Right.
an ugly story.
Right.
But we can match those dollars with SEMA dollars to support marketing materials and educate and other pieces.
Right.
So it's not that SEMA is not contributing, but there's certain ways that they cannot contribute. And that PAC is the spearhead in Washington that makes sure that people understand our side of the story. Because I guess at the essence, we're just not part of their vision. It's not that anybody's trying to hurt our industry. They're just not informed and they don't see us, and we have to change that.
You have to get a seat at the table.
You have to get a seat at the
And
table.
unfortunately, you have to sometimes force your seat. And
Yeah.
sometimes that takes leverage. And unfortunately, not everybody just goes, hey, I got a great idea. You have to sort of push them to that. And I like the idea of having you in charge of pushing people towards that idea.
Every spare moment I have, I am dedicated to this. It's very important to me.
How could people connect with the PAC and with some of the efforts you're working on for SEMA too?
So they can call Samantha Firth Lang. There's also a QR code that is going to be at the SEMA banquet table. It was at the breakfast this morning. They can call me, Kim Pendergast, 917-922-2278, and I will help them through the process.
I vote for Kim. I vote for you right now. I don't know what for, but I want you on my side. It's truly amazing. And thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for being a part of so many different people I know, their careers, their businesses. You've had your fingers into so many different things that it doesn't look like you're going to stop anytime soon. So
Not planning on it.
thank you for being a part of
Thank you.
SEMA. I really appreciate you dropping by. This is the voice of the industry, Kim Pendergast, Magnets and Superchargers. Boy, I'll tell you, lots of things happening here at SEMA 2022. Nice to have you along. We've got more coming up.